What happened on the CN side of Loveanddeepspace? What was the boycott all about? Let me start by saying, wow. Although Loveanddeepspace has been through many controversies before, the one this time is definitely the biggest of all time. Since June 22nd, the community was nothing but disruptions, debates, and arguments. As a player myself, I have to say I was really sad to see how this all started and evolved into a disastrous event. It is also very rough to see how different servers and communities turn to each other, with conflicts not just between the company and the players, but between the player themselves. With yesterday morning's announcement from Paper Games hoping to call for the grand finale, player base says no, and conflicts remain. As someone that browses both the CN communities and Reddit and Twitter regularly, I have been following the whole situation from the start. I decided to post this video with the purpose of breaking down some information walls and go through the whole timeline, and explain how did the boycott evolve, what was the actual magnitude and the key arguments, and how we end up here. Disclaimer that this video is based on what I've seen personally, and we all know in this day and age, what you see is determined by the algorithms, and may not be the entire truth. So please correct me if I made false arguments. Also, disclaimer that I do not intend to defend or support any side with this post. I agree and can relate to both sides. I, however, am very sad to see how everything unfolded or the extent this has evolved into. I will do a little bit of my own hot take at the end. My version of the TLDR? I think this game is only gonna go downhill after this. If I were Paper Games strategy team, I'd pretty much give up on hoping for a dramatic upturn again and start investing somewhere else. Also, I sense Valko still has his chances. It's up in the air. I'll explain this at the end. First, let's go back to June 22nd when it all started. Everything started with a surprise livestream. Prior to this livestream, there have been rumors floating around about a possible sixth love interest. The community pretty much called that fake and didn't think there would be a sixth. There is a portion of players that thought it was possible, mostly due to the UI designs we see in-game, which hinted there might be more coming. Players that didn't believe them argued there were no proper sixth character that was important enough in the main story to be made a love interest. Everyone nervously awaited the livestream to start, with many guessing or hoping the wall theme might be a new multi-banner preview. At this point, though many denied a sixth love interest or didn't like the idea, I don't think they overall hated it as much as we saw later. Right after the livestream, initial native feedback. The livestream didn't go well, with most shocked about a sixth love interest, and the majority of the CM player base didn't like the initial look of him at all. Many thought he didn't fit with the other 5 existing love interests aesthetically. Even more denied the idea of a sixth suddenly dropping out of nowhere. Other player bases at this time had mixed reviews. On Twitter, it was a mix between shock, surprise, and excitement. Korean player base was mixed with more negative reviews, while Japan is mixed with more favoring the new love interest, though many of them were still stuck on the CV issue, which I won't derail to discuss here. Initial state was not too bad, though community disruption slowly started. Many CM players that didn't agree with the sixth started to post in online social media platforms, suggesting removing him, though at the time, many probably didn't think that would be possible anyway, or making him a special encounter similar to how they treated Shaw in Mr. Love Queen's Choice. Backstory for Shaw. Mr. Love Queen's Choice was also an otome game by Paper Games, which introduced Shaw as the 5th love interest after initial release. That also received a ton of backslash and boycott with their player base. Eventually, Paper Games stepped back and made him a special encounter, which means less cards, less events, and overall different treatment than the 4 existing love interests. What can we say? History always repeats itself. Initial boycott started small, but received increased attention and had more players join very quickly. On the CN side, some of the key initial arguments were: Number 1, productivity issues. Many quoted what Paper Games said in prior live streams or announcements about not having enough resources to keep up with the main story or Abyss or Chocolate Shop updates. Players also dug up numbers about existing love interests having main story not updated in a long time, which was over 500 days for Caleb. We're missing cards for Silas or Caleb. For example, those 4 stars that came in sets but didn't have a Silas or Caleb version due to them not being introduced at the time. They questioned Paper Games' future plans, as it seems like they had time to develop a new love interest, but no resource for existing love interests, nor shared any plans of doing so. Many argued it was a money issue, since main story is free content, but the new love interest means more gacha cards. Global players shared some of the similar concerns, though far less and not to the same magnitude. Number 2, the lack of build-up and communication. This one we all know of. It is a surprise character no one saw coming. Many feared that this means it'll happen again and again in the future. Anyone that was even briefly mentioned in a tiny corner of the game could become a new love interest. Rumors of possibly a total of 9 love interests start to float around. Combined with the productivity issues, this could mean even less content to the existing love interests. Number 3, the most controversial one, tailored aesthetics. Many CN players felt Valko was a character tailored to the Western market, thus with the werewolf backstory and the more bulky or masculine design. Many compared him to Jacob from Twilight. The revenue pie chart starts to float around, where CN players complained Paper Games is using their money to please the West. Especially combined with the productivity issue above, since resource is limited, but they opted to create Valko, then spend it on existing love interests. This, in my opinion, is an extension of some existing conflicts between Paper Games and CN players, where the CN players felt Paper Games have long been two-faced. Since the game first launched and had initial success, Paper Games had gifted players with 20 free pulls every time they were able to top the app chart in CN during banner release. And this is when all the CN players are paying to buy packs or diamonds. This 20 pull is gifted to all servers when it happens. However, up until July 2025, these were announced by Paper Games as update or appreciation gifts on Twitter, without mentioning topping charts in CN. Paid players in CN had long felt unfair about this different version announcements and protested many times. Overall, CN players felt like the fact that the Paper Games specifically changed announcement language to downplay CN players' effort was quite offensive. Number 4, character design and difference in treatments. With Valko's released content, many questioned the overall design as he looked like different existing love interests at different angles. Some also questioned him taking some key signature motive, such as using the moon motive again when it was strongly connected to Xavier already. Many also questioned his identity as the boss of Eon Core and rumored it possibly related to Ever, which was involved with harming many other love interests before. Complaints got louder as the official account on Weibo started replying players in a childlike begging tone, saying they're sorry and please try out the new love interest before denying him. Many claimed the official account has never done something like this for any other love interest and was all business-like before, when other love interests were mistreated, and they're giving Valko a special treatment. Number 5. Homophobia arguments start to float around, claiming Valko had a certain look and features that made him tailored to the gay community. I do not agree with this argument and won't go further, and suspect part of it is also an extension of anger and players start to try to find all possible angles to attack. This got worse when the two keywords started trending on Weibo, one Valko Xavier and another Valko Raphael. Both were obviously yaoi or gay-themed. Given the CN players community were extremely anti-yaoi for otome characters, players suspect these were sent to trending by Paper Games themselves and was deeply offended. The specific cultural background on why this could be found offensive, I will cover in a later point. This was day 1 to 2. At this time, a sizable group is boycotting, many are observing, some are quiet because they didn't agree with the boycott or liked Valko anyway, but didn't feel strong enough to speak up. That proportion, however, started to shift as the boycott goes on and Paper Games stayed quiet. The proportion slowly transitioned towards more joining the boycott as Paper Games continue to release new updates such as rerun banners or new PVs like a preset robot without addressing any player concerns. This event by now has media coverage, as their Weibo account, which usually has 1 to 2,000 comments on each post, now have accumulated over 1 million negative reviews in 48 hours. And that's still growing. Weibo stops showing accurate count after 1 million, and many suspected it's been 2 million as we speak, despite Paper Games' effort to delete or clean up some of the comments. Many demanded answers to future main story developments, promises to update existing love interest contents, and removing Valko. During this time, more anger towards Paper Game itself started to evolve. My personal opinion, probably with some external forces joined in to quote-unquote help the boycott, though I have no evidence of that. Some boycott arguments that start to float around include Paper Games intentionally controlling controversy in the past. Some players claim that there had been many instances before where influential fan accounts released controversial comments that eventually led to fans of different love interests fight each other. Or times where one love interest PV got removed because, as rumors say, they got reported by other love interest fans, so Paper Games had to unwillingly remove them. Now this time, those fan accounts were surprisingly quiet. Also, with all 5 love interest fans actually reporting Valko's PV, nothing happened to it, making players suspect that all the previous rumors were just ways Paper Games used to cause disturbance and diverge player bases from each other. Perhaps to prevent something like the one we experience right now to happen. Day 3, Paper Games then released the official livestream preview, which is to be held on June 28th. It also slowly released other contents, such as Valko's PV or other informational posts. Doing business as usual as if nothing happened triggered more anger. Next stage, Boycott went to the next level in the next few days. Players encouraged each other to stop paying, stop logging in, and rate it a 1-star on iOS App Store until Paper Games deliver an acceptable response. Those who purchased official goods and wanting to quit due to this rushed to refund, since the Loveanddeepspace store uses a pre-order approach, and there are loads of orders that has been put but not fulfilled yet. Personally, reading through the comments at that time made me feel most of the players wished for responses, promises, and compensation, hoping Paper Games would address the concerns, especially with promising better treatment to existing love interests. Some warned each other that Paper Games might come out and give everyone an awesome free reward to stop the boycott. But players should push for a firm deadline. For example, a main story update by Q3 or something of the sorts, or promise to cancel plans with Valko to free up resource. This was far more effective than most would think. As a mobile gacha game, significant drop in user activity and gross income shows itself. Charts showing significant drop in income start to float around. The CN App Store ratings dropped to around 2, while the Korean App Store was close to 1 star. Paper Games finally came out and released their first official response. From what I recall, feedback from both the CN side or the global side was not that positive. CN players called it declaration of war, as they found it to be incredibly vague with any commitments and no concrete timelines for new content. The players have interpreted this as Paper Games admitting they have done nothing to the existing issues and lack of content, nor have any plans of addressing those. Global players didn't have any issues with Valko, but also wished there were more contents to the existing love interests or game fixes or updates. Many on the CN side called this the most disastrous PR letter they've ever read, as Paper Games addressed nothing and just made everyone more angry. Starting from here, the divergence between CN and Global also got worse, where using different social media platforms made a majority unaware of situations on the other side. CN discussions were getting increasingly heated every second, where having Valko was lesser of an issue right now, but the lack of response, not acknowledging existing issues with productivity, and arrogance from the tone of the statement was the new focus. Most mocked that they were low-key worried Paper Games had plans in their back pocket or would give awesome rewards, so most in the boycott would quiet down. But that was not the case. Lots were in disbelief that such a boycott only resulted in 10 plus 10 pulls. Seeing confirmation that there were no main story update in the pipeline pushed more players to join the boycott. Those that were already in it escalated them further. The 20 pulls to claim by July 23rd was read as a tactic to have players log back in. A very small portion of the players involved in the boycott remained optimistic that Paper Games perhaps plan on addressing the concerns during the actual livestream itself, or announce another sizable updates that would compensate bringing in a new love interest, which we now know neither occurred. The official livestream was the last straw. Actually, from my opinion, the boycott in CN was half dead after that. Not because they weren't angry anymore, but because they didn't care. The livestream proved there were no content update to any other existing love interests, indicating they had done nothing but to present a sixth love interest, despite it being a major version update. There are also much less content and reward overall comparing to last year. Nobody tried to address the ongoing boycott or provide any type of reassurance. They mocked the mainstream update promise at the end, saying even the CG is an old CG. They probably asked an intern to build that slide to paste in last minute. And the content itself? Probably only made a new photo yesterday. Someone dug up a job posting from Paper Games hiring for a story writer. Mocking Paper Games only started planning for new story updates, and it might be another year before they're available. Many shared the consensus that with the current content updates, such as minimal main story, events that felt repetitive, and nothing to do other than spending 3 minutes to finish up dailies every day, having the game or not doesn't make a huge difference. With so many joined the boycott and stopped logging in for about a week now, they also didn't feel like they missed the game a ton. Those that are left in the boycott have escalated this to a new level. At this point, it was not about making the game better. They were furious about how invisible they looked, that Paper Games operated as if their biggest player base didn't exist, and refused to respond in any way or address any concerns. The new tagline was not "remove Valko," but "I want the game or company to shut down." New boycott arguments start to arise, this time with the intention to bring down Paper Games altogether. This is when all the outrageous arguments start to arise, and all the unsolved conflicts from the past get dug up again. I'll try to add some cultural background here to explain why this could escalate things so quickly with the final outcome that Valko was actually removed. These were much more serious accusations that went beyond game planning itself and ignited anyone that saw them. First, Valko's introduction story. Safety of female living alone is a societal topic in China and quite sensitive. Despite being one of the safest countries to live in for most, it is very important for single women to stay alert, just as in any other country. Making stories where a guy jumps through a balcony and evolve that into a half-forced romantic interaction with high level of intimacy really quickly triggered a lot of fans, as it is romanticizing something dangerous and could have bad influences, especially on younger players. Although other love interest stories had similar starts, the level of intimacy did not increase as fast and took slower progression. Many said the intro PV was unnatural and they felt more harassed than attracted. The banner also quotes an idiom that roughly translates to inviting wolf into the house, which basically means inviting trouble. It is a clever wordplay on the wolf aspect, but in recent years, the idiom is more frequently used in situations to describe women inviting possibly unsafe men into their houses and suffer consequences. Overall, the story was blamed to be insensitive and have negative influences. Number 2. Back to the pleasing West part. In addition to the previously mentioned 20 pool announcements, players dug up many more posts Loveanddeepspace made on Twitter. Whenever there was a traditional Chinese festival with relevant celebrations in-game, those announcements in China references those festivals directly, but intentionally removed in the English versions. The intentional different versions seems as if Loveanddeepspace is ashamed of its origin, which deeply hurts the CM players. They also found out that one of the plushies in the claw machine was introduced with the name Coolie at first, which is discovered to be a racial slur to Chinese people. Though faced later, players blamed Loveanddeepspace for releasing something like that without checking first. Number 3. Many suspected possible AI involvement in designing Valko and possible future directions of the company. Lots of people mentioned Valko looked different in different angles, making a face hard to remember and possibly blended in other love interest data during creation. It is a downgrade to quality. Number 4. Homophobia. As we all know, China is a very different society. Despite dame being popular overseas, real-life LGBTQ is a significant minority. Laws and regulations make them much less empowered. However, if you ask a normal civilian that is young and educated, they're probably not homophobic. However, this changes quickly when we discuss romantic relationships. Due to the societal pressure and not allowing for same-sex marriage, there had been news reports locally where certain men tried to hide their gay identity in order to pass in society. They get married, and the woman in that marriage is getting lied to and taken advantage of. Obviously, we are talking about criminals or indecent human beings that are rare cases, but these news reports have made young women significantly alert toward these possible gay references. In Valko's banner, the title uses a certain word for living together, which phonetically sounds identical to the word that refers to women victims of gay marriage. Did Paper Games do that intentionally to their players? I'm sure they didn't. However, it is again a very insensitive choice of words, since there are millions of other words to use as banner titles, especially after the initial homophobia comments in the first livestream. Lastly, "Don't bathe in pot" from the kitchen update tagline was compared to a real crime case where the husband murdered the wife with a very similar approach. It's a recent case from 2024 with lots of public media coverage that's hard to miss. Again, intentional? Most likely not. Insensitive? I'm afraid so. At the same time, most didn't think that was an appealing tagline for a kitchen update anyway. Now, even at this stage, Paper Games was not stepping back. As I expected, they found themselves stuck in the middle with no way to please everyone. This all changed with the 731 reference getting into light. By now, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. In another post, someone explained the 731 issue as almost the same level of taboo as the N word or the H*T word, and I would agree. The key part here is that in addition to the reference to number 731, story also aligned. Using an analogy, it's as if there are stories about plane crashes in-game with record title 911. But think H*T and war crime terms. There have been many instances in the past where this was found referenced directly or indirectly in work creations within CN, and whatever work it was would automatically be banned. Again, did Paper Games do this intentionally? I don't think so. I certainly do not hope so. However, one would expect someone writing the story would have the level of sensitivity to no use any other number than that. This last one blew up as one would expect and was trending number 1 in an instant. Paper Games came out very quickly with an announcement that it was unintentional and quickly changed game wordings. However, damage has been done. The game is now in the eye of the storm, and this is far more serious than any other argument before, as it goes back to the culture's deepest pains. With the player base being so young in general and the text is not super obvious, it is understandable that it was not highly discussed before. However, now it is in broad daylight, you cannot pretend you didn't see it. This is when everything came to a drastic turn and eventually made them make the final announcement. Valko launch is cancelled. Paper Games also promised they would not create any other future love interests. Reading through the announcement myself, I did think there was one loophole. As they say, planned launch is cancelled, but didn't deny launching Valko another time or say he's deleted permanently. I think Paper Games at the time wants to see how the community responds and perhaps push him out way later when everything dies down. With the announcement, Paper Games also included 30 free polls that are released one per day, indicating the no logins were especially high damage and they're trying their best to bring login stats back to normal. So, what now? Unfortunately, the drama is far from over. See inside, there is a small wave of surgeons from players that actually liked Valko and wanted to have him back, but they are simply vastly outnumbered. Because the boycott has taken another turn, most saw Paper Games' sudden announcement and change in attitude to cancel Valko as a last resort and hoping the 731 arguments die down ASAP. Because they knew it was a far more serious issue and could get Paper Games into unimaginable troubles. So they more than ever demanded explanations to those references, as well as other insensitive and inappropriate storylines. It is no longer about a few girls that didn't approve of the new character in-game, but gone down a political rabbit hole that no one knows where it leads to. Meanwhile, petitions from the global side starts to pick up speed, where those that favored Valko cannot believe such a big and reputable company would take out something that's already released and have now gathered demanding Valko back. When will this come to a true end? Will this escalate further? Nobody knows. Now, the story is the story. What is my personal take? There is no winner in this whole ordeal. Paper Games had to give in, possibly flushing months or even years of work down the drain, and we don't even know what could happen in the next few days, and if they could pull it through. Players that didn't want a 6 have lost trust and faith to Paper Games and have already quit or will quit soon. Those that looked forward to Valko got excited, but only to find out their wish won't come true. The CN community is offended by Paper Games' actions and reactions and won't be as sticky as before, possibly reducing revenue significantly for Paper Games. CN and global players continue to attack each other, causing non-needed negative emotions nobody wants. Although this time Paper Games promised certain updates, I personally think the game will go downhill after this inevitably, and those that still enjoy it will have to suffer through that. I myself joined the game in late 2024 and saw the days where the community was buzzing with energy. Hoping one day we're back at that, give it weeks or months. Now, what could have been done better? First and foremost, Paper Games seriously need some professional PR help. The whole evolvement was such a disaster that was painful to watch. Many times I was dumbfounded by this response or lack of response. They waited long enough that upset players that were lukewarm turned boiling hot, and their insincere response just ignited everyone. It tried to bury its head in the sand for too long, perhaps hoping the boycott would die out just like before. When it didn't, Paper Games obviously was not prepared, nor had the ability to handle the situation, and could do nothing but to watch it spiral out of control. Throughout the ordeal, I felt really bad for Paper Games because it spiraled so quickly and there was already no way out, with them stuck in between and impossible to leave everyone happy. The second thing I would mention is communication. Paper Games need to figure out a way to communicate better. They've been quite extreme with the communications throughout. First, they start with a huge surprise. Then radio silence to the feedback. Then boom, Valko's cancelled. If they were to give it more time to build up Valko's story and background in the main story, they could have built a consistent fanbase prior to official release. It would also be less of a shock to players that might not want a new love interest. Additionally, if they were able to build stories that were loved by all players around the world, we might not be where we are today. Throughout the boycott, which only has been 8 days, I can't even imagine even as I speak because it felt so long. They could have listened better or responded better. If they were to be more gentle and collaborative, or admit that they've been neglecting other love interests and have better and concrete plans, it might not have evolved into this stage. Instead, Paper Games chose to stay quiet and hoping the voices would die down themselves. Players also felt their initial statement extremely insincere, rude to be more exact, which contributed to the spiral effect significantly. Lastly, whoever came up with a business strategy seriously need to do some self-reflect. Who thought it was a good idea to devote all time and resource to a surprise love interest with no update to anything else? As it turned out, there is literally no fallback even if they wanted to. The level of confidence from these planning really shocked me personally. For such a drastic change, especially after them suffering through the same thing with Mr. Love, I would expect him to be just a tiny bit more cautious and have a plan B in case things went south. Unfortunately, they didn't. Taking another step back, if with Valko, Loveanddeepspace had released 3 new chapters of main story for each love interest, I assure you nobody will have the time to protest or boycott, but too busy playing their own games. Part of me, and also some on the internet, suspected they had the confidence to do so because they were so successful with Silas and Caleb. However, things are way different with those two. Lots of people saw Silence and Caleb coming at the time since there's been story build-ups and many suspected them to be love interests and waited for them to appear long before they were announced officially. Although, even so, both times there were boycotts, just not to the same extent. Additionally, the character designs were top-notch, with Silas being one of the most successful, if not the most successful, otome characters of all time in mobile gacha games. I myself felt there were 3 opportunities they missed. First, if they saw and had even the roughest idea, this was not the same level of boycott as before. For example, reaching 1 million in negative comments in less than 48 hours is a record to beat. And started planning immediately, investigating options of possibly turning him into a special encounter. It could have been better. Would players still be upset? Most likely yes. But would it be as bad as what we see today? Maybe not. Next, with their first statement, if they were more sincere, don't be so uncompromising and showed more willingness to rediscuss or reevaluate, it might not have gone so serious. Even if they didn't in the end, at least it shows they tried. And many that were on the fence might have felt the other way, hoping and waiting to receive better contents for their own respective love interests. Again, would it solve the problem? Maybe not, but can't be worse than today. Lastly, the official live stream. If they had prepared something more, if only, it wouldn't have looked so bad. Jumping out of the whole boycott thing, I'm also worried that with such a high revenue they're generating, if this was all they could do for a major version update, I seriously question where all the budget went, and if the game will get any better in the future. This is where I'll stop. Subscribe for follow-up videos as situation evolves. Do you want Valko back? Do you think it's possible that Loveanddeepspace release him at a future date? Or do you think Loveanddeepspace is in an even more serious trouble now? Leave a comment below and see you next time.